Hey guys, and welcome to another Schematics update. This time we want to talk about Parkasaurus, and we've got code from Washbear Studios, so first of all thanks for that. And I'm joined by Blind IRL as usual and Jontis. Hey.
Hello.
Guys, we got code like a couple of days ago and we played a little bit. I kind of want to know at first, what are your initial impressions of Parkasaurus?
Parkasaurus to me comes across as like two games. There is a pretty solid Zoo Tycoon style management sim in there, and then there's this really weird mobile game stuck on top, which I just can't quite figure out. The actual core mechanic, the actual here's your plot of land, draw a path, put a fence down, you know, pick a few dinos, go in, and then you have to tweak the interior of the exhibit to best suit that dinosaur, is really good.
So I'm going to elaborate on this for a second here. So, like, essentially, I think this might be one of the better Zoo Tycoon engines ever made. Yeah. We've had a few Zoo Tycoon E-type games over the last number of years, and what's really weird is we just had Mega Aquarium, which is essentially another Zoo Tycoon style game. I feel like because there wasn't a whole lot of Tycoon games for a really long time, more specifically, there wasn't a lot of good Tycoon games for a really long time, people have forgotten how to make them. So we had, back in like the 90s and early 2000s, every single Tycoon game in existence. There was, I'd say, maybe a 8 to 10 year gap there where the only Tycoon games that existed were either on phones and not very good, or very, very, very bare bones basic. And I think what's happening is people are trying to make complicated Tycoon games again. They have to be more complicated than the Tycoon games of old. So they're trying to add more mechanics on top of that, but nobody knows what to do. So we either end up with one extreme, I'm looking at Jurassic World or Planet Coaster, where they just don't have enough mechanics and are just a kind of an uninteresting management game. Or they go in the complete opposite extreme and completely overbloat with features. It's very, very difficult to find that balance. And this one is somewhere between overbloat and in the middle. There's a lot of UI within UI within UI. There's a battleship minigame in there for some reason. There's timers that you're waiting for. There's a bunch of different stores where you're buying different items from.
They're not bad systems. The battleship minigame is actually pretty cool, but there are just too many systems. So, okay, so I've drawn out my fence on the ground and I've put some trees in and whatever. Yeah. I want to put a dinosaur in there. Right, to do that, I have to go to a portal.
Stargate, you're going back in time.
Yeah, like it looks, like a Stargate, sure. And you're going to go back in time to get fossils. So I don't really know why you've got to go back in time because fossils are now. And you click and that shows you a little map with a line where your explorers are walking and the end. So that's a time gate, basically. So it's a timed thing. When the explorers get to the zone or whatever, you know, when the minute is up or whatever, you click dig and then you get this, like I say, pretty neat little battleships kind of game.
Different scientists have different shapes they unlock on the map, which is neat.
That's it, yeah. So they kind of have like Tetris kind of shapes, you know. So different scientists, as you open them, you start off with a basic square, and some of them have like lines, and some of them have, and they use up points, so you can only do so many, and it's actually quite neat. Now, I can imagine it would get incredibly tedious, but you do that, and from that you collect fossils or skulls or footprints or coins or gems and all these different things. And then you have to go to town, which is another UI that it's genuinely, this is the bit that kind of screams mobile game to me. And there's a shop that sells veggie food for herbivores, there's a shop that sells meat for carnivores, there's shops that sell gems and hats, which are cosmetic items for dinosaurs, and then there's one that sells eggs. So you go to the eggs, and for instance, if you want to grow a Triceratops egg, you have to have 2 of a certain type of footprints, 2 skulls, and a gem that you found from this minigame. And then you get the egg, and then you go back, drop the egg in, and then after a couple of days it hatches and you get your dinosaur. There's about 6 steps to put an animal inside a exhibit in a Zoo Tycoon game.
I think this makes a lot of sense, or maybe not a lot of sense, but it makes more sense for the bigger, more endgame dinos. I think it should be a lot easier to just kind of buy an egg and go ham, because obviously in this world this technology exists, so why can't I just buy an egg? One thing I will say is literally all of the UI in this game is exploding with character to the point of just making me grin like an idiot the entire time. I really like the way the game looks, I like the way the game sounds, I like the way everything reacts when you click on it. I do agree with a lot of Jontis' issues here, but I think that kind of bursting with cartoon character,
I love the style of it, I love the look of it. I think the main game UI is pretty solid. It's just when you start going into these sub-menus, looks completely different. Like, it could be a completely different game, you know, other than the actual art style being similar.
Totally.
Like I say, one of the menus where is lots of little shops, and one of them is the office one where you have is crazy. They've kind of gone for this sort of real UI,
really
but again, there's no point of it at a glance. You know what things do, you know.
No, totally. But once you initially when you look at it, it's like, whoa, what is this? But I think that everything is really readable and distinguishable, like any game in this genre. The first time you look at the UI, your head's going to kind of flip on its end and you're going to go, what? After messing around with things for a handful of minutes, it's pretty easy to kind of sort out what you need to click on and where. And most important items in the UI have a big, bold, easy to read, and that's positive from my point of view, that says what you're clicking on and what it does. With the exception, I think, of the actual egg buying screen, which has this weird see-through UI which feels unfinished and for me is damn near impossible to read. But speaking of reading things, I know Adfo mentioned to me off before we started recording something about staff.
I think that stuff is really hard to tell which person is staff because they kind of look like your normal guests. Yeah, there is an overlay that highlights staff and tells you what kind of staff it is. So you have security, you have janitors, you have scientists.
The vets.
Yeah, the actual vets, the actual sort of people who just care for the dinos, yeah.
Exactly, yeah. It's kind of hard to tell without the overlay on. Looking back at Roller Coaster Tycoon 1 and 2, you could immediately tell if it's a staff and what kind of staff it is, but that's just one issue.
A lot of people bemoaned Planet Coaster for their staff all having the same model, but you can't argue that they're very readable. From quite a distance you can spot a janitor, you know, in that game. So there is something to be said about really sort of oversimplifying their silhouettes almost, so that they really sort of stick out. I
think that is kind of a problem with this game, actually, is just general readability of what's going on in the map and not popping throughout the other UIs. While the other UIs are over-designed and crazy, at the very least it's easy to tell what you're looking at. The actual game itself, I think there's a lot of portions that are a little difficult to spot, but I think that kind of goes into just the fact that this is going to be an early access title, and it is quite an early access title. I really hope that doesn't end up hurting the game in the long run, because there's a really good framework for a potentially really cool game.
Like I say, I think the actual sort of park building bit is really quite strong. They've got lots of different options, you know, lots of different fence options, lots of different buildings you can place down, and just you know, facilities and decorations and stuff like that, little playgrounds that people can go and play in. Really quite fully featured. I just think that it's weird, because it's normally the opposite complaint with early access, that everything's really bare bones. I actually think they've just got a bit too much in here, and I think it needs a bit of a sort of a pass to kind of reel it all back in and streamline it all a little bit.
If you play City Skylines, the game has like 20 overlays. If you play even Mega Aquarium, which came out recently, that game has like 9 overlays. I think when it comes to just, here's a different like color-coded version of the game, Parkasaurus has like half a dozen overlays. I think anything that gives the player information is a good thing, and right now, well, quite literally all we have is the privacy overlay and then the staff overlay, right? Unless I've missed another button.
And water overlay.
Right, yes. The other one in the building menu, which shows what the actual biome is, but it would be really nice to see where my money is coming from. An overlay that just shows, oh, this tip box is more popular than this tip box, because that's how you make the majority of your money, is you put these little donation boxes everywhere, and then people who like what they see will just toss quarters into it, I guess. I think they're $5 at a time, so bloody generous tips as far as I'm concerned. It could also use a trash overlay, maybe an overlay just showing where the majority of people are hanging out, if there's any crowd density issues. I don't even know if that's a mechanic in the game yet, or if the people just wander through each other. It's kind of hard to tell.
It doesn't really matter, honestly, if it's an issue or will become an issue, but it would be neat to have like a density or crowd density overlay, just because you kind of want to slap, as you said, the donation boxes there, but also like your shops, because that's where the money is, and that's
restrooms and things like that. Make sure they're in the busy parts.
Yeah, exactly. So right now it's more like a guessing game and saying, yeah, I could pop in some buildings there and a restroom here.
Parkitect has a little overlay which you can select either individual guests or you can just select all of the guests, and it shows where they've been. So it'll kind of show like a little connect the dots almost of where the guest has traveled. And that's a very useful piece of information for the player, because it shows, oh, this is like the last 3 to 10 places they've been, and they keep running back and forth between this. Why am I making them run literally all the way across the map and back to use the toilet? Okay, I guess I should put a toilet over here. Another small nitpick, which Adfo pointed out because I didn't even notice, apparently the game has no pause button currently, which is a weird issue that the only other game I can think can possibly have that was Jurassic World Evolution, which definitely is a
and I think in case of Jurassic World Evolution, it kind of made sense, because events that happened, and you could cheat the system there if you had a pause button.
Every aspect of that game was based on
exactly.
was based on timers. So yeah,
maybe they might be going for a similar thing here, but let me just put a little pitch to any developer making a tycoon game like this with disasters. Moment a disaster starts, remove the player's ability to pause. Problem solved. Give us a pause button for the rest of the time. Then if a dino breaks out or if a nightmare is going down, you can't pause.
There is an overview window where you can select like your staff and your guests, and you get a list of your staff and your guests and whatever you selected, and that's all fine. And you have an happiness bar that shows you how happy your guest and so on is. And if you click on the guest, you see like the thoughts of the guest. And I'd like to see something like Rollercoaster Tycoon 1 and 2 had, like a list of the most popular, in air quotes, thoughts. So you can see where your issue is without going through every, most frequent, without going through every guest and see where the similarities are. I kind of think that would help a lot as well.
The dinos are super cute, and they make you shoot one right in the very beginning to tranquilize it, which damn near broke my heart. It's part of the tutorial. But I guess I just want to pitch the question here. Is Parkasaurus ready for early access yet? Because for me, right now, I think back to... like, we compare games a lot here, right? Because there isn't a huge number of games in this genre. I think back to Parkitect, which was a Kickstarter and then did not launch onto Steam right away. They launched onto Humble in limited early access at a much higher price point, which kept them going for a couple more months and got them a lot of feedback. But I really wish that they were doing a more limited release first. That's just my opinion. I don't think it's ready yet. As much as I like what I've played, I don't think it's ready yet. I'm
not sure, really. Like I say, the actual core mechanics are pretty solid. I haven't really had much trouble with things going wrong or anything like that. There's plenty to do. The actual game's relatively featureful. I just think it's got a bit of a case of there's a bit too much going on, and they had all these cool ideas. They had this idea of going through a portal to get the dig sites, and then they had this idea of a battleships game for digging stuff up, and then they had the idea of collecting bits to trade in for eggs. And I think maybe something like early access to actually get it into people's hands and for people to say, there's a lot going on here. You know, sometimes I think developers can get a little bit blinkered when they've sort of spent a year and a half doing something and everything becomes second nature to them as far as the game's concerned, and they fly through all the features. Whereas actually, you know, I just think the main struggle here is that there's a bit too much going on. And maybe it takes fresh eyes to notice that.
Oh yeah. I mean, they're working on the balance on the Washbear Studios Discord, and one of the developers said they did a lot of balancing in the last couple of days. They basically doubled the cost of everything in the tech tree and reduced it by the half, and then the process all over again. So they're kind of waiting for more data from the player to balance the game more. I can't give you a real answer to your question if it's too early yet, because I mean the core game mechanics are there and it's fun for me. It's like, as I said to you before we started recording, there's nothing that really stands out like on the positive side or on the negative side. There is nothing really bad in the game, but nothing that stands out in a positive way. It's a nice experience right now, and I like it.
Yeah, most of my issues with it are just little things really, and like I say, the actual building of the exhibits, which for me should be the core of this kind of game. Making sure the animals are happy, and then obviously making sure the place runs well. But really, I think the actual building of the exhibits is really pretty good. Lots of different options. Really nice sort of mechanic of getting the right amount of different terrains and different plants in there as well, without having that whole thing that Zoo Tycoon had with that's one too many blocks of sand. For me, I'm just a little disappointed that the actual real solid core of the game is getting a little bit lost in these extra little things. Because we haven't even talked about the hearts, which is a completely separate money system.
I was thinking about that.
The research tree, the science, that you have to put people down to work science to unlock things, and loads and loads of stuff that we haven't really mentioned. It's all just been thrown on, and I think actually what I think would really benefit the game is them stripping it back a little bit, focusing on the pretty solid core gameplay that they've got in there at the moment. But again, like, it's took me 25 minutes of talking about the game to remember that that's in there, because there's just so much going on here that there's just too much stuff.
They need to figure out how to make all of that stuff fit together in a nice package instead of just kind of a bunch of little different things bolted together onto a nice Zoo Tycoon game.
But yeah, there are a couple of features that are in the game. For example, allow breeding for dinosaurs. That's currently not in the game. So I'm curious what they will add during early access. So yeah, we could close it out with the question, buy now or wait?
It depends on how much of a enthusiast you are, really. If this is something that you need right now, buy it. But at the same time, there's a lot of other games in this space right now that are more fully featured and completed. As much as I would love to see a lot of people pick this game up and see it do well, because I'd like to see it get finished in a awesome state and become an amazing little video game, if this is something you need right now, pick it up. Otherwise, there's definitely no harm in waiting on this one.
This is it's a difficult question, this, for me. And for you guys, I assume, as well, because we are a little tainted by the fact that we get it for nothing, And I often think that with when we do these kind of videos, I think, Joe, I've had real good fun in this, and then I think, would I have had the same amount of fun if it would have cost me 20 quid or 30 quid or whatever, And I'm not too sure with this one, to be honest. Yet, I think, like you said there, if you're really into it and you're looking for, maybe Jurassic World Evolution disappointed you a little because we didn't, it wasn't really a Zoo Tycoon with dinos, which is what it should have been. This is, so you might get your fix here that you didn't get with that. But like you say, there's obviously plenty going on here. It's obviously that they're going to go through with the full release. You could hang on a bit, but you got 20 quid to spare. There's a lot of it seems that there's a lot of gameplay here, although there isn't much of a campaign yet. It's mostly a sandbox with a little tutorial with a sandbox. But they will be adding a full campaign.
I played the game for 3 hours now, and I'm on the tech tree, the science tech tree, basically on 3rd of 8 tiers, so I have a shit ton to unlock. And the hearts tree, I'm on the 2nd row now from 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So there's content definitely to unlock, so you won't get bored. Want to unlock a lot of stuff, and I should close the game because I'm trying to play it now, which is basically a good sign. First of all, Jontis, thanks for joining and talking about Parkasaurus with us.
No problem. Happy to be here.
Especially after the long day at EGX for you.
Yeah.
I have that in front of me next week, EJX Berlin. And thanks to you guys out there watching our video. If you enjoyed the video, smash the hit the smash button. No matter what you do, you know what to do if you like the video. And if you really like the video, you may want to consider doing the extra step over to Coffee to buy Ed, who's continuously enslaved in our basement to edit all our videos.
Adfo, you did hang on to the key, right? Because I did lock him down a couple hours ago, and I think we might need to get him food.
I put some cat food in there a couple of hours ago. Yeah, he should be fine.
Okay, cool.
The one thing I need to ask is, the one thing I really want to ask is, why did I have to go down to the basement as well? Like, I was happy to do this from my house.
Poor
Ed smells.
If you really like the video, go over to Coffee to buy Ed a coffee so he can stay at least awake to edit our videos. Anyway, guys, thanks for watching again. See you next time. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.